I'd like to call the Personnel Committee meeting to order. First up is Personnel. Monica. Morning, Monica.
Good morning. We have like surveys that go around from different towns and cities and counties and all that and within New York State. And one of the surveys was in regards to seniority points. So we took the opportunity and reviewed our seniority points, and they have not changed since I've been here. It's almost 30 years. They've always been 0.2 added to a score to up to a maximum of 4 points that you could have added to a promotion exam. So we kind of reviewed that and looked, and if you had 20 years, you'd have to have 20 years of service with the county in order to get 4 points added to a score on the exams, which at one time that was fine, because if you got, say, a 70 and you got 0.2 points on your exam, you at least had that 0.2 over the others. Now they're added on to zone scoring. So there's like a span of 5 between each score. So giving a 0.2 doesn't change your score any. I mean, unless you're right at the very edge of it. So we kind of revamped that and thought we would raise it slightly and see how it went. But we would like to raise it from the 0.2 to 0.4 for each year of service. So up to a maximum of 8. So instead of the 4 points that you would have with 20 years of service, now you would have 8 points added. So that may help your grade go from one zone to another zone. So we thought it would be a benefit to our long-term employees that, they've been here a while, and it would be kind of a boost for them to take a promotion rather than not. So that's what we got in store. We're going to implement that hopefully with our next promotion exams coming out, because it does have to be advertised on our actual announcements.
So just so you understand, that would be a revision to the civil service rules, which you...
It's not in the rules.
It's not in the rules?
No, it's not in our rules.
So we need a resolution.
No, it's a policy that we followed from the state for years. It's our exam policies. So every jurisdiction sets your own.
So any questions?
I do. So is it with regards to the actual examination for a particular position, or is it, you're talking about a person who's been in a position for, say, 20 years. Are they retaking a test of a position they're already in?
No.
How does this,
No. This is any promotion. If I'm in an exam, let's say I'm in a title right now that's a lower level and I want a promotion, I'm going to take that promotion exam to look for that. So the one I'm in is not already taken for the promotion.
So the promotion,
it's a higher level than what I'm at.
So the promotion is the same position, but just moving you up a grade level. Is that what
No, what would happen, let's say you were a clerk for 20 years in the department, and you took a promotion test for account clerk.
Okay.
So then you would receive the seniority credits towards your score based upon that.
So you're moving from clerk to account clerk. You're moving from one position to it. So you are taking the civil service examination.
Yeah, you would take an exam for
and you're getting your seniority from having taken having worked so many years.
Holding the lower level title for a long period of time.
Right.
Any other questions for Monica? Tom?
Yes, and I did discuss this with Monica. It really caught me by surprise with the dissolution of the village of Port Henry. I called a few weeks ago trying to get a certified payroll.
Yes.
And found that they have not been certified since 2011.
That's correct.
How can that happen? I just don't understand it.
We don't have the payrolls that have been sent to us.
But isn't it our job to oversee that they are?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And we are trying to catch up on those, as well as, We're constantly playing catch-up here, so we do have, we have the town of, or the village of Lake Placid up to date. We're working on the others, so.
But 2011, I mean, I know when, to commend your staff, I mean, they call my office if we don't have a payroll out there.
We've called the office and all that, so we're waiting for them to send us the information. If they don't send it,
Yeah,
you know,
what are the
I would-
consequences if someone doesn't send it?
well, we would have to send them a notice. We're required by law to certify their payrolls.
Thank you. That's my whole point. 2011, that's when I spoke to the comptroller, they were shocked. They couldn't believe it. And I had said, well, you know, the village should have sent the pay. They said, no, it's up to the county. It's supposed to be the enforcer on that.
Yes,
I just-
and we will be sending another
I-
notice. I've called,
Yeah.
and I'm waiting for follow-up. I'm hoping that they will send it without me having to send a notice.
Well, I just, you know, and I'm not trying to reprimand you, but I just think that's not a good thing. I mean, that's one of the key functions of a personnel officer is to certify payrolls.
Yeah.
I would just echo, because Ticonderoga just went through this, and ours hadn't been certified since 2014, and we had some issues regarding duality of positions, which was, as a new supervisor, I mean, I'm learning a lot, but that was a real problem.
Yes.
I mean, it's critical because when the day comes that we get an audit at the town level, we're the ones out there hanging, or the village, or the school, or any municipality. So, got to do a little more oversight there.
Jerry?
When you say they're the enforcer, you notify them, they don't send it, you notify them by writing, they don't send it. What's the enforcement? What can you do?
Well, they can end up being, like you said, fined, as well as they're responsible for their own payroll. If
Right,
they
of
don't,
course.
if I don't certify their payroll and they have paid somebody incorrectly and all that, they're responsible for that payroll. It doesn't fall back on
That's
the
what I'm saying.
personnel.
There's actually a provision of civil service law that provides that it's a misdemeanor charge if you fail to turn in certified payrolls. I actually sent a superintendent of a school a letter when I was personnel officer that said you potentially could be charged with a misdemeanor if you fail to provide certified payroll. So there is some bite to the law in terms of that.
Right, but I'm talking about personnel, themselves.
Well, what
You
I'm
know,
saying
send
is,
it in to them, that's one thing. Just like in the Village of Keysville just dissolved in the end of 2015, and they were in violation of that, plus the water violations, the EPA and DOH and DEC, where they were going to be fined so much a day. They didn't follow through with it. There's nothing, now it's in our laps, and we take care of it now. But as far as the payroll goes, we just hired what we wanted to, or we could hire, you know, of those people that we needed. We didn't hire anybody we didn't need, and we started them off with a pay salary of what we could justify with who we already have there. So whether their payroll was certified or not, that had nothing to do with us. They're dissolved now, and that's a different entity. We'll hire and pay what we can afford and what goes along with what our people are being paid.
Bill?
Monica, so just give me a quick picture. What are you certifying? Are you certifying that we're not paying an employee for more vacation time than they've earned? I mean, what kind of things do you certify?
What we look on for your payrolls is the titles, to make sure that they're properly classified.
Okay.
That they are equal pay, equal work. Those are the things that we look at.
Okay.
We have to make sure that any exams, if somebody is provisional, is being scheduled and taking the exams and so on.
Good, thanks.
Further questions for Monica? Is that all you had, Monica?
That's all I got.
All righty, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Work of the board, Judy.
I've submitted a monthly report. If anyone has any questions on it?
Any questions for Judy? Dan Manning has no report from the county attorney's office. The other thing that we have, I think you all received an email from Dan regarding what I'll term as pay grade equity. which we've been in discussions with labor management over the past couple of months. Dan has come up with a proposal, and I'll just ask Dan to explain that.
I put out a report essentially that talks about the proposed MOU between the CSEA and the county in reference to 40-hour rate adjustments. We currently, and again, I don't know if you read the memo, but the history of this goes back to actually 1980s, I believe it was. At one time, the county used to hire employees based upon a yearly salary, and some employees worked 35 hours a week, some employees worked 40 hours a week, and at some point, the Labor Department came in and said, you've got to define a rate for these employees. So the county at that time simply took whatever the salary was a year, divided it by 1820 for 30-hour employees, and divided it by 2,080 for 40-hour employees. So what you essentially ended up with from that point forward was that the same graded positions made more per hour if they worked 5 hours per week less. I talk about it in the report. Obviously, that's an issue. It's been agreed to in the contracts consistently, but the union has brought it up as an issue for discussion at labor management, and we are obligated to address it based upon their concerns. One of the things that we talked about was within this MOU is a provision that would allow for a higher percentage of copay on our drug plan for specialty drugs. Under the plan would change to a 30% copay for specialty drugs, but what the manufacturers have done under the specialty drug programs is they've offered copay assistance programs. In the way that our PROACT, our drug carrier, drug pharmacy benefit manager, now has a way to work out where that copay amount literally can be handled in the background. The employee would go in to the drugstore or through mail service, would be set up as a 30% charge for that specialty drug, and the copay assistance program would then be leveraged directly by either Noble Health Services or PROACT for that copay assistance program. The result would be the end user, the member themselves, would still only pay their normal $35 copay for specialty drugs or $50 for specialty drugs. But in the meantime, the drug company, either PROACT or Noble Health Services, would access the actual reimbursement for the copay assistance. The reason I bring this up and the reason I asked for this at the same time as the MOU is because, believe it or not, the actual amount of money that we could leverage through the copay assistance program is somewhere between $250,000 and $300,000 a year. That's the amount that is available through the copay assistance programs for these specialty drugs. These specialty drugs are extremely expensive. One of the examples I gave you is that we've had one script over a 6-month period that cost $136,000 for one script. If we had a 30% copay, we could have leveraged $36,000 in reimbursements from the drug company for that purpose. So if we can get the union to agree that the specialty drugs would be listed as 30% copay, then we can take advantage of that copay assistance program. Now, in terms of we have about 75 employees who currently are paid the lower amount under the 40-hour rate. If you adjusted those rates to the 35-hour amount, we're looking at a total between wage increases in FICA and retirement cost, based upon an estimate. I didn't do each number individually, but based upon an estimate, about $336,000 a year increase in cost to the county for this correction to the rate difference between the 35-hour and 40-hour people. If we leverage the drug copay, we would pick up about $250,000 to $300,000. So somewhere in that worst case scenario, probably it's $250,000. So we're probably looking at about an $80,000 difference a year that would cost us to correct these hourly rates that are currently out there. Now, what I have said to the union from the get-go is that I still view this issue as a two-pronged, two sides to the coin, so to speak. There's two ways of looking at this. We've either been paying 40-hour employees, or we're underpaying the 40-hour employees, or we're overpaying the 35-hour employees. So if in fact we don't get an MOU here with the union now, in reference to this, and it somehow goes to litigation, then the county's position would be that the 35-hour people were overpaid. Whether that stands up, I can't say that. I just know that if this process gets outside of our control, then we don't know what the result of that will be. One way or another, it will be solved. I mean, the union has brought it up. There is an obligation on our part to bargain in good faith. This MOU that I'm proposing to you that has been written, I wrote the most of it, Dan corrected or added legal language to it. The union is agreeable to it. So if you passed a resolution authorizing us to sign the MOU with the CSEA, we would in fact have a rate adjustment for those positions. It only makes sense. Like I said, one of the examples that I gave you within the report was if you look at a grade 4 clerk position, which is a 35-hour position, they're paid $15.11 per hour. A grade 4 maintenance, building maintenance helper is paid $13 an hour. Both of them are grade 4s. Both of them are the same graded position. Yeah, you have to understand under civil service we're required to produce grades in which all position titles, regardless of what they are categorized into a grade which is equal or as close as possible to equal in terms of job responsibilities and minimum qualifications and those things that go along with it. So we have established by a grade study that I think was done in the 80s that we have grades 1 through grade 17, and those positions are in fact supposed to be equal. We are, however, not paying those positions equal. One of the issues when Steve kind of mentioned it here at the last meeting, and I said we were going to have this discussion, one of the issues, especially in DPW, where most of these employees are located, is recruitment and retention. We've gotten into this situation where the rates paid to those 40-hour positions have lagged so far behind that we are having a very difficult time recruiting and retaining these employees based upon the hourly rates that have essentially fallen below the market value. An HEO that we pay $15 to or $16 to, I think most of you in your towns are paying well above that in terms of what the going rate for an HEO is. It's awful difficult to recruit CDLs and welders and those kinds of certified people based upon the rates we're paying. The other issue that's been probably makes this a little more palatable in terms of dealing with it right now is that we no longer have the nursing home. We, as a county, are at the lowest amount of employees that we have essentially had in years. At one time, we were as high as 700 employees. We're now below 500. So I guess if, in terms of correction, if we're going to make a correction, it probably, this is probably the more opportune time to do that. So that's essentially the proposal. I know it was fairly lengthy, the explanation that I provided, but I certainly can answer any questions.
Can I have a motion to accept the MOU, agree to the MOU that Dan is proposing with CSEA? By Mr. Gilliland, second. By Mr. Merrihew, discussion. Mr. Farabee.
Dan, on the, is it $1 million that we currently budget for the specialty drugs a year?
There's actually, our total drug plan is like 3.4 million. The specialty drugs, which are actually only utilized by about 24 members, is driving like 1.4 million of that cost.
Okay. So, and I know that in your report it showed through June we were at $730,000.
Yeah, we were running $786,000 for the specialty drug cost for the first 6 months of 2016.
So with the copay, what are we looking at budgeting for 17 for the specialty drug?
We probably would look to lower that number by about 250,000. And again, that's going to be driven based upon what the one drug that I specifically pointed out we think is a one-time shot that we don't believe it will occur again. But if it does, we're still at that same ballpark. But I think based upon if we were able to get this 30% copay assistance program, that we could reduce the amount we budgeted for the self-insured drug plan by about $250,000.
Further question. Mr. Merrihew.
I commend you. I think this is a very creative way to address the issue that's out there. My only question is, down the road, like you say, under the copay assistance program, provided it continues to be offered, is what are our plans in the event 3 years down the road? Because that's a substantial cost. Are the union receptive at all as far as maybe a modification down the road if that does go away?
I haven't addressed that with the union. What this MOU essentially talks about is through the end of this contract, we would be starting a new contract negotiation next year. So, anything that we may potentially be looking at would probably be addressed at that point. I have to tell you that, in my opinion, I don't believe the copay assistance programs are likely to go away right away. It really comes down to, and what we're really talking about under these specialty drugs are the biological drugs, the new drugs that are being developed that are so costly. But the reality is, and I think the manufacturers understand that the reality is you can't sell those drugs if the copays are cost prohibitive. I don't care what drug manufacturer you are. Like, for example, that one drug that I talked about within this example, if that was a true, and a lot of companies have a 20 or 30% copay on specialty drugs. If that was a true 30% copay on specialty drugs, that individual would have had to pay $36,000 as a copay for his drug. What that really comes down to is that individual would no longer be able to take the drug. That would just end that drug in particular, or any of those specialty drugs, to be honest. Because even if you get down into some of the lower cost specialty drugs, which when I say lower cost, I'm talking $1,000 or $1,500 a month. If you're at a 30% copay, that's $600 or $700 a month, and nobody's going to be able to not likely to be able to afford it. So I'm not foreseeing a point where this copay assistance program goes away, but I would never sit here and tell you that it will not, because the possibility always exists.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Further comment? Well, I'd like to thank Dan. I know he's put a lot of effort into this, as has CSEA, so hopefully we can get this straightened out and make things right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Any further discussion to come before personnel?
What do we do with what Monica asked about, the point system for 20-year employees? Just at this point.
I'll have a discussion with Monica. I don't know if she needs a resolution. She doesn't seem to think so, so we'll see. I'll talk to her. If we do, if we need something, I'll get back to you.
Any further comments or discussion? There being none, we are adjourned.